The first whiff that Gary Bigelow, license driver for Mythical City Pizza, caught when he clocked in was not tomato sauce or melted cheese. It was trouble. Somewhere beyond the ringing phones and steam-burned cooks, a customer was shouting into a headset. "I'm telling you, the creature is E-list. He delivered my extra large last week and fled before I could get my camera." Gary winced and tucked his shaggy brown beard attached to the rest of his shaggy, brown everything into an XXL hairnet. Gary, of course, was the creature. He preferred Sasquatch or Forest Gentleman, but the shop's health inspector had insisted on the hairnet, and Gary had no intention of arguing with anyone who carried a clipboard. He had bills to pay. Despite popular folklore, uncharted wilderness real estate was shockingly expensive, and his cousin Patty the Yeti would never let him forget the outstanding loan for the new cave skylight. "Gary!" shouted his manager Tina while balancing 3 pizza boxes on her forearm like a circus act. "Central Route lunchtime special, 2 pepperoni, 1 vegan gluten-free quinoa nightmare. And watch out. The Conspirasphere convention just opened at the Civic Center, so the streets are full of amateur cryptid hunters." Gary's shoulders slumped. Cryptid hunters were the worst tippers. Worse, half of them live streamed to fringe websites whose banners promised truth they don't want you to know. Nothing ruined a lunch rush like being chased down 6th Avenue by someone shouting, "Hold still, the internet needs high resolution." He accepted the insulated bag and scanned the delivery tickets. First stop, an architecture firm on the 32nd floor of the Emerald Spire. Second, a dog grooming spa called Pampered Paws. Third, the Civic Center itself. Ironically, the convention. Gary considered swapping those addresses, but Tina's GPS tracker tattled on route tampering, so he'd have to dance with destiny. At the back door, he squeezed into the delivery van, a battered electric micro truck whose slogan, painted in dripping mozzarella letters, read, "Our pies are abominably good." Gary had suggested something subtler, but marketing insisted it was tongue-in-cheek. He ducked, started the silent motor, and eased into downtown traffic. Within 2 blocks, he regretted turning on the radio. The talk show host was interviewing Dr. Byron P. Flashman, founder of the Institute for Extraordinary Footprints. "We have credible reports," Flashman declared, "that the Sasquatch has infiltrated modern society by disguising itself as a gig economy worker." "Open your eyes, sheeple!" Gary slapped the power button. Music was safer, even the station that played nothing but accordion remixes of chart hits. He merged behind a bus wrapped in an ad for night vision binoculars, "See what they hide," and tried to become just another delivery driver. From the sidewalk, 2 convention attendees spotted the van slogan and performed a double take. They wore matching camouflage overalls and GoPros on their chests. Gary boosted the window tint and slouched, but one of them already had a phone out. He made the light, turned right, and lost them once the bus blocked the view. Score 1 for evasive maneuvers. The Emerald Spire's loading dock was monitored by an elderly security guard named Mrs. Rodriguez, who knitted anxiety blankets during shifts. She barely glanced at Gary's 6'8" silhouette anymore. "Afternoon, honey. Elevator's out, so you'll need the stairs." 32 flights and no elevator might faze a mere mortal, but Gary spooled his long arms and legs into action, bounding steps 4 at a time. Cardio? Check. Why do cryptid hunters always assume Sasquatch is lumber? He made the top in 3 minutes, breathing only slightly harder than a yoga instructor. The architects greeted him with applause. "You again, our weekly morale booster." Someone held a tape measure to verify his shoe size, 26 wide, and offered him a tip in the form of custom-printed business cards reading, "Gary Bigelow, freelance wonder of the world. Call us for big ideas." Gary pocketed the cards politely and accepted an actual cash tip from the intern who knew better. The trip back down took longer because he had to sign autographs. Not the good kind for children, but NDAs for the firm's legal counsel who feared leaked photos of their scale models. Clearly, even humans understood the downside of unwanted exposure. He emerged street level and saw the same camouflage twins from earlier staking out the sidewalk. One of them pointed straight at him. The other unslung a telescoping selfie stick weaponized with a zoom lens. Gary whispered apologies to Mrs. Rodriguez, then ducked behind a mail cart, tiptoed past a planter of decorative bamboo, and executed a textbook alley escape. His phone buzzed. Tina, tracking the delay, he texted, "Stairwell plus paparazzi, making good time." Tina just replied with the pizza emoji and a lightning bolt. Pampered Paws stood 6 blocks east, past the Riverwalk. As Gary approached the pedestrian bridge, a street musician blocked the path. Not a problem. Gary tried to fish $1 from his fur. Then he recognized the tune, the theme song from that sensationalist docuseries Stalking Sasquatch. The guitarist was accompanied by a guy snapping photos of passersby, hoping for a viral shot. Gary feigned tying his non-existent shoelaces until a jogger in neon shorts created a distraction. Then he squeezed through the crowd. On the far side of the bridge, a kid with melting ice cream looked up and said, "Mommy, look, a giant Chewbacca." Mommy, thankfully, was busy posting some brunch pic and never lifted her eyes. Pampered Paws smelled like wet dog shampoo, but miraculously, no conspiracy theorists hid among the poodles. The owner, Ms. Delilah, was over the moon. "Perfect timing! We're about to do the Bichon Frigé blowouts." She paid online and handed Gary a squeaky toy modeled after a UFO. "For your trouble, big guy," Gary squeaked it once. Every dog in the lobby howled joyfully, and Gary added Canine Pied Piper to his resummary. Also added one more reason not to trigger a howling mob when he reached the Civic Center. With 2 stops down and the final pie still piping hot, he headed south. The Civic Center Plaza was a kaleidoscope of banners. UFOMG, Loch Not Ness Again, and government ghouls and goblins. Vendor tents sold everything from novelty tinfoil hats to psychic aura selfies. The pizza order came from Booth 88, Flat Earth Funnel Cakes, which claimed that round pizza was part of the spherical Earth indoctrination scheme. They insisted on triangle slices only. Gary could skip the building and text for curbside pickup, but the app said inside delivery only. He breathed out, ruffled his neck fur to maximum fluff, and plotted a route. The key was blending in. Among people dressed as reptilian senators and ghost cosplayers, a Sasquatch might pass for underdressed. He put on sunglasses the size of compact discs, slung the insulated bag like a messenger satchel, and entered through the south gate. At first, no one paid attention. A booth selling real Bigfoot hair wove tweed clippings into lockets. Gary tried not to roll his eyes or admit that the samples looked suspiciously like his Uncle Mort's chest mat. Halfway to booth 88, he heard it. "There he is, the real deal." Dr. Byron P. Flashman himself stood on a crate waving a copy of his best-selling field guide. Flashman pointed at Gary's size 14 sunglasses. A klaxon of phone cameras rose. Gary did the only reasonable thing, dance. He spun, moonwalked, a surprising skill for a forest creature, and yelled, "Promotional mascot, folks! Try the bacon-wrapped funnel cake." Then he tucked behind the free Roswell Rosé samples booth, crouched, and swapped hats with a mannequin sporting a lizard people mask. Now disguised as a reptiloid in a Hawaiian shirt, he emerged just in time to collide with a human traffic jam around a keynote speaker. The sign read, 2 p.m., How to Debunk Photos of Bigfoot. Perfect. The presenter, a stern woman with laser pointer, clicked slides of blurred shapes in forests. Gary tiptoed past, praying no one looked his size 13 claws. Booth 88 appeared, manned by 2 flat earthers slicing pizza into perfect isosceles triangles with a protractor. When they saw Gary, they saluted him like a bearded admiral. "Your delivery is round, but our minds are sharp," said one. They jabbed at the boxes suspiciously, but still signed the receipt. The tip, a coupon for free Skydome maintenance once the truth breaks. Gary filed it under souvenirs too weird to toss. Mission accomplished? Not yet. Flashman's voice thundered over the PA system. "Security! Seal the exits! The specimen is inside!" Sirens whooped. Cameras swiveled like sunflowers hungry for scandal. Gary's instincts screamed, "Tree line!" but the building had none. Plan B, misdirection. He grabbed a marker from a Hoaxbusters booth and scribbled "Free hugs from Bigfoot" on a cardboard scrap. Then he handed it to a teen wearing inflatable stilts. Teens loved chaos. The stilt teenager paraded away, cameras pursued, and Gary slipped under a draped tablecloth, crawling between boxes labeled Area 51 confetti. Dusty glitter coated his fur, turning him into a disco squatch. He popped out behind the main stage, next to a fog machine scheduled for the 3 p.m. Spirit Photography Workshop, fog equals cover. Gary cranked the dial to maximum, filling the hall with spooky mist. Anxious squeals echoed. Is it the Mothman? No, too hairy. Wait, maybe the Mothman's barber? Visibility dropped to 0. Gary felt his way along the wall until his fingertips found a door labeled maintenance. Inside, a janitor stood ankle-deep in mop water, headphones blasting polka dubstep, blissfully oblivious. Gary mouthed sorry, borrowed a reflective vest, and wheeled out an empty trash bin as camouflage. Through the gloom he trudged, a 7-foot sanitation worker sparkling like a glitter bomb. The side exit was guarded by 2 convention volunteers scanning badges. Gary's vest had no badge, and his trash smelled suspiciously like pepperoni. He improvised, lifted the bin lid, inhaled and exhaled his best imitation of an old disposal truck's hydraulic hiss. Leaking dry ice, he grunted in a gravelly human accent. Need exterior venting. The volunteers recoiled at the shimmer of confetti smoke swirling from his fur. Yeah, get that outside, they said, retreating. Gary rolled the bin past them and into sunlight. He kept going till he reached the loading dock, where he tossed the vest and checked his phone. Tina had sent a celebratory gif of a dancing slice. But his relief evaporated when Flashman burst through another door, still clutching his field guide. "Stop that sanitation, Sasquatch!" he hollered. A dozen followers sprinted behind him, cameras poised. Gary upended the trash bin, now empty, and it clattered across the dock, tripping 2 pursuers. Then he leapt onto a stack of pallets, vaulted a fence, and landed in a produce market. Shoppers shrieked as apples bounced. Apologizing mid-stride, he scooped fruit back into crates, but didn't stop. Ahead, an open sewer maintenance hole yawned. Most would detour to a Sasquatch who grew up navigating hollow logs. It was an invitation. He descended the ladder, replaced the manhole cover, and entered the echoing labyrinth, smelling faintly of damp hope and yesterday's burrito. Above, muffled shouts faded. Water dripped rhythmically, and Gary allowed himself a chuckle. Conspiracy hunters rarely considered plumbing. He turned on his phone's flashlight and followed painted arrows left by city inspectors. One arrow pointed to subway access. Perfect Mythical City Pizza had a kiosk inside the metro station. He could surface among commuters and vanish. 5 minutes later, he surfaced in a maintenance alcove behind a billboard for, oddly, that same docuseries theme song, now advertising ringtones. The platform bustled with office workers and tired tourists. Gary shook off glitter, patted his fur into a less Sasquatchian silhouette, and merged into the crowd. Height still gave him away, but city dwellers respected personal space if you looked like you owned it. A train screeched in. He boarded the last car, found an empty corner, and pretended to scroll social media like everyone else. The reflection in the window showed a tall guy in an I Like Trees hoodie, the best garment ever produced by the employee swag catalog. 2 stops later, a familiar voice entered the car. Dr. Flashman, breathless but relentless, flanked by the same twins in camouflage. They scanned passengers. Gary's heart drummed. He quietly slid into an adjacent car through the interlink, but Flashman spotted the motion. After him, the conductor announced, a delay due to cryptid congestion, which made half the car laugh. Gary edged toward the emergency exit. Outside lay the tunnel walkway, off limits to mortals, but disclaimers rarely mention Sasquatches. He cracked the door, ignoring the alarm, and slipped into the dim corridor. Footsteps echoed behind. The walkway ended at a maintenance hatch leading topside. Gary climbed, shoulders scraping pipes. He emerged in an alley behind Mythical City Pizza's main store, the universe's idea of a punchline. He burst through the kitchen door, almost colliding with a delivery guy spinning dough. Tina yelped, "What happened to you? You look like a rave exploded." "Long story," Gary panted. "We have decoy costumes." Before Tina could answer, Flashman barged in the front, waving his book and gasping, "I followed the beast." Cooks froze. Mozzarella stretched in midair. Gary grabbed a spare mascot head, an oversized slice wearing sunglasses, and plopped it on. Now he was a 7-foot pizza slice dripping sparkles. He shoved through the swing doors into the dining area, where Flashman pointed triumphantly. There! That's him! The customers, mostly office workers grabbing late lunches, cheered and pulled out phones. But not out of conspiracy fever, out of brand enthusiasm. Mythical City Pizza's marketing promised that Slices, the mascot, did weekly in-store visits. They assumed this was the show. Gary hammed it up, doing the sprinkler dance, high-fiving children and launching coupon confetti. Flashman sputtered, then yanked the mascot head off. Underneath, still glittery Sasquatch, gasps all around. Before panic could ignite, Tina leaped onto the counter with a bullhorn normally reserved for late-night karaoke contests. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting our new augmented reality experience, she gestured grandly. The world's first fully interactive Bigfoot hologram. Wave your phones, capture the myth, it's all part of the app. Employees switched lights, pumped fog, and even activated a projector that usually displayed sports games. Gary went with it, striking poses. The customers, conditioned to doubt everything, assumed Flashman had ripped off a digital filter. They cheered louder, posting clips labeled Pizza Squatch. Flashman, red-faced, shouted, "It's not a hologram, it's flesh and fur." But his voice drowned under EDM bass and an inflatable tube man dancing near the soda fountain. Security, called by Tina via secret code word, extra anchovies, arrived and escorted Flashman outside for disturbing the immersive experience. The twins followed, grumbling about NDAs. When the doors finally settled, Tina cut the music. The employees erupted in laughter. Gary removed the mascot head and bowed. "I think I deserve hazard pay." Tina handed him a sparkling water. "Take the rest of the day off, legend." Oh, and tips came in. She emptied the digital jar. Cash, crypto codes, coupons, and one handwritten note. "Thanks for the show, Dr. B. Flashman." On the back was a grudging scribble. "For real, call me, let's talk licensing." Gary chuckled, pocketed the note, and headed to the staff room. The mirror showed a Sasquatch dusted in glitter, wearing a hairnet askew, smelling faintly of pepperoni and civic chaos. He'd outrun conspiracy theorists, danced with funnel cake flat earthers, and turned an existential threat into brand engagement. Not bad for a Tuesday. As he clocked out, Tina called, "Same shift tomorrow?" Gary stretched his long arms, contemplating a quiet life behind a desk somewhere, maybe at that architecture firm. Then again, grids and cubicles lacked the thrill of dodging paparazzi with lenses longer than canoe paddles. He grinned. "Wouldn't miss it," he said. "Just order more glitter." Outside, dusk twinkled over the city's skyline. Somewhere on the sidewalk, a kid pointed and asked, "Mom, is that the pizza monster?" Mom replied without looking up, "If it gets the food here hot, I don't care if it's Godzilla." Gary laughed, adjusted his hoodie, and strolled toward the subway. After all, tomorrow's delivery list already waited in his inbox, and rumor had it the Mothman wanted calzones.